Sue Johnston lives in Warrington with her son Joel. After working as an actress for 20 years, she finally found fame as working-class heroine Sheila Grant in Brookside.
I think a lot of people see me as a northern working-class woman, and I think that is me. I think the basis of what I am is that. But I now have privilege attached to it, you know, recently in these last few years of my life. But I know where I come from and I know where I'm comfortable.
Sue's grandfather, Alf Cowan, has always been central to her sense of identity. But she's heard stories about him that suggest his background was anything but working class.
I can't quite get in my head that he came from this hotel, had, I think, a private school education, maybe. I think that probably I'm old enough now to accept if he was very right-wing. I'm old enough to understand where all these things come from. I'm not going to suddenly be ashamed and think, why did I ever think he was a god?
Sue wants to find out the truth about her grandfather. But first, old friend and Brookside colleague Dean Sullivan is coming for Sunday lunch.
Well, here's to the chef, Joel.
Well done.
Cheers.
Lovely.
Nice one.
Cheers, Mummy.
And when I finish this, I'm off on a journey.
Oh, yeah, wow, gosh.
Where
busy
to?
day.
I'm going to find out about my grandfather.
Your dad?
My
Your dad's
mum's
dad or your mum?
dad.
Your mum's dad, fine,
Yeah.
from Cumbria, yeah.
The one who drove the
Yeah.
on the railways. And I'm going off to find out whether my granddad ever really did drive the Flying Scotsman.
Oh, wow.
Right.
And
But where did that come from anyway?
well, I think that he did.
That he did, yeah.
I don't
yeah,
know.
Alf Cowan worked on the railways in the first half of the 20th century, when engine drivers were seen as working-class heroes.
All little boys in those days wanted to drive a train. And I had a grandpa who did that. So I was sort of felt really proud. And I remember as a little girl getting on his train, going to Liverpool. And when we got into Liverpool, we went and stood with him and had this great sense of this surging power was being driven by my granddad. So I just thought he was the bee's knees. And I never doubted at all that he drove the Flying Scotsman.
Type work like Flying Scotsman.
Okay.
F.
Yeah, it's me with my contact lenses.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Oh my God. Ride the Legend. See, isn't that amazing? That You like them, don't you?
Sorry?
You like them.
What trains?
This is your
Right.
history. Well, I don't know. It might not be. Might not be.
Might be a lot of crap.
The first step of Sue's journey is taking her to the National Railway Museum in York.
Well, I feel really excited about going to see the Flying Scotsman in the flesh. You see, I don't know how anybody could get affectionate about a diesel train, but something about these old steam trains that I just love them and mourn their passing, really. Look at that one. That must... Actually, I suppose you can love a diesel train. Look at it. Oh, it's the Eurostar. Oh, God, it's electric. Look at these. Oh, this is a very famous old... Look at it. Oh, it's fantastic.
The Flying Scotsman isn't displayed in the main museum because it's still used on short runs for tourists. At the moment, it's in the workshop being repaired.
The wheels. Oh, my God, it's the Flying Scotsman. Look at these wheels.
The Flying Scotsman made railway history in 1928 by completing the first non-stop journey from London to Edinburgh in just over 8 hours. It offered its passengers speed and luxury, a cocktail lounge, hot food, and even a hair salon.
lucky am I to come up? Oh, gosh, it's extraordinary. I can feel the testosterone. The seats here, it's a bit like being a pilot, and he would be shoveling the coal in. Look at the size of this spanner. Oh, God, I can't even lift it. I think what's amazing is that this is an extraordinary job to have, and you can understand why every little boy in the world wanted to be an engine driver, just to see the power in here and the sense of being in control of this. And yet, my grandpa was all very self-contained, you know. He didn't walk around like... he was just a very gentle, quiet man.
Alf retired in 1950, 2 years after the railways were nationalised. Until then, they were run like they are today, by private companies. The Big Four were London North Eastern, Great Western, Southern Railway, and London, Midland and Scottish. Few people know more about railway history than Alan Pegler, the man who saved the Flying Scotsman from the scrap heap in 1963.
Alan. Hi, Sue. Hello. I've got dirty hands because I've
all
been
right.
on that footplate.
Worry not.
How are you?
Well, I'm fine. I'm just not as mobile as I'd like, but otherwise I'm very good.
You're all right
very
here,
good
are you?
Yeah, great. Anything to hold on to. Nice view of the old girl.
What do you think of her?
Oh, absolutely superb, marvellous. And of course, as I say, they are all female anyway. So maybe the Flying Scotsman, but it's still the old girl.
Yes, absolutely. So when did you...
The only way Alf could have driven the Flying Scotsman is if it ran on the same line he worked on.
The company that my grandfather worked for was the LMS.
London, Midland and Scottish.
But now, is there any chance that that locomotive, the Flying Scotsman, ever would have been used on that line?
Well, that is LNER, the London North Eastern Railway, and the
Right.
chances are absolutely minimal. I can't say it's absolutely impossible, but very, very unlikely.
Okay, so I've got to swallow my disappointment.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
It's a very popular misconception, and an awful lot of people get the idea because they perhaps got family connections going back many years, that they've probably got a family connection association with that locomotive. But in 99 times out of 100, it really, I'm afraid, is not true. It's a shame, but there we go.
It's a shame. Okay, I'll join the other 99%, I think, then. If I hadn't found out the truth, of course, I would have passed this on to my son, who would have carried the myth on to his kids, and they would have gone to museums to look at Grandpa's train, and then they'd have gone, she was lying all those years ago. But I thought he was a god. So a god has to drive the best train in the world, and that, to me, was the Flying Scotsman. So now you've ruined my life. Where do I go from here?
With the myth about the Flying Scotsman dispelled, Sue wants to find out what Alf really did. She's returning to Warrington, where he worked for over 40 years, to visit a retired railway men's club.
I'm going to talk to a man called Tony because he thinks he might be able to help me, find out a bit more about my grandfather. I'm not quite sure how. I can't believe there'd be anybody alive that knew him, so it must be maybe general information, I'm not sure. But I can find out all about, practical stuff, about the route through to becoming a driver. And if I can find out anything else about him personally, then that will be a bonus.
Hello.
Hi. If Tony's around. Tony?
Tony. Oh, Tony.
No.
Oh, the landlord. Oh, that he's around there somewhere.
Oh, okay. You're not waiting for me by any chance, are you? No.
Yes, we are.
Are you?
Yeah.
Hi. I thought you might be. I'm Sue.
I'm Gordon.
Hello, Gordon. Nice to meet you.
I'm Arthur. Pleased to meet you, Sue.
Arthur.
Yep.
Ken. Hi. It's lovely to meet you. So you haven't been wasting your time.
No.
So, you must be railwaymen. You
Yeah.
Are you?
Retired railwayman.
Right.
150 years between us.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
Were you drivers? Were you?
Yes, we
You all three?
firemen and drivers.
Really?
Cleaners, firemen and driver.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
And was that always the way? Was that always
Yes,
so?
that was always the way.
Yeah. So when you come in at what age? As
14.
14. And what would your job be then?
Well, you'd start
You'd
off
be a
the...
cleaner. Start off as a cleaner.
Cleaning the engine?
Yeah. And
The
then you start
locomotive.
off, from there you go to a pass cleaner.
A pass cleaner?
Yes,
What's
well, you go for a bit of an exam
Oh,
to make it a pass cleaner. So
And
you
then-
go firing.
You'd still be a cleaner, but if they were short of firemen,
Fireman, you-
they could send for you for firing, like, you know.
oh right.
And that's the way the promotion worked on. Same as when you became a driver. You was a fireman, and then you became a fireman driver. And you could be called on for driving then, until eventually you became a fully fledged driver.
Right. So I'm just wondering if any of you might have known my grandfather, Alfred Cowan.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
I've
definitely.
fired for him.
We've all fired for it. Now, some of
You've all
those...
fired for him?
Yes,
I fired for
some
him
of
once.
those drivers, they were devils, they were like, you know, and, you know, some were nasty, weren't they? But I'm not saying it because of you, but your father was a gentleman, your grandfather was a gentleman.
Really?
He was.
A nice
Different than
chap.
some of them. Oh, very nice. To work
Really?
with, yeah.
Ken, Arthur, and Gordon eventually worked their way up to engine drivers, but promotion only came after years of exhausting and dirty work. A cleaner would start at 5 a.m., and every inch of the engine would need to be cleaned of soot and dirt. The work of the fireman was even more grueling. Over a distance of 300 miles, he would have to single-handedly shovel 5 tons of coal into the furnace. Engine drivers were the elite of the working class, and there were no shortcuts to the top. Sue had never imagined Alf starting on the railways as a cleaner. The LMS company records had been destroyed, so the only other way to find out if he did begin at the very bottom is if he joined a union. Union records are kept at Warwick University.
Oh my God. There. They called him Alf even in his registry. Age 21. In September 05, and he was a cleaner. He lived.
The information in the Union records contradicts another of Sue's assumptions about her grandfather.
He was 21 when he started on the railways, and I'd always thought he'd sort of just gone there from school. I'd naturally assumed that. So, wrong. I was wrong. So there's a mystery for me about what he did from leaving school to starting work on the railways.
The only people who might be able to shed light on the mystery are Alf's children, and there are a few to choose from. He had 14, and 9 of them are still alive.
Hello, Sue. Hi, Auntie Jean. I've got some things to show you.
Of the 6 girls, Sue's Auntie Jean is the second youngest.
Oh, right. What's that?
Cleaner.
Cleaner.
Age 21
Oh, 21.
in Workington.
And yet we always understood that it was 15 he started.
Well,
right.
that's what I wondered if you know.
Well, that's... we were always given to understand that he went into the railway when he was 15.
Really?
Definitely, yes.
Well, where was home then? Where?
Well, that was Workington. He was born in a hotel, I believe. Yes, which they said. What's the name of that hotel now? Oh, the Globe. The Globe Hotel. This was the hotel they said he was born in. But he was brought up by a governess. Your grandpa.
Really?
Oh yes, he was brought up by a governess. You see.
I wonder how then. He came to come from that to the railways.
I don't know. And he was eventually a very strong socialist.
Oh, yeah. What a relief.
And his parents weren't, but he was.
He was.
He must have been a bit of a rebel, mustn't he?
Yeah.
There's always been talk in Sue's family about a falling out between her grandfather Alf and his parents, James and Elizabeth Cowan. Nobody seems to know what it was about, but Sue's worked out a theory of her own.
If he had a governess, for my grandfather to suddenly be on the railways, I can see why there would be a rift. Because I think that's probably, if they've spent all that money on his education, that's the last place they'd want him to be. For him to be a cleaner on the railways must have been pretty devastating.
The only place that might reveal what Alf was up to when he left school is the 1901 census, taken when he was 16.
Name. Alfred Cowan, age 15, where born, Cland, Workington, County Cumberland, Civil Parish, Workington. It was a shipbroker's clerk. A shipbroker's clerk.
A shipbroker's clerk was the classic white-collar job. They were usually middle class and educated, and frequently went on to become successful businessmen. These positions were often obtained through parental influence.
It was good to be in an office as shipbroker's clerk. It had great prospects, I would imagine. Very clean, very proper, get dressed up and go to the office, and then suddenly it obviously wasn't him, and he threw it all up in the air to do this, be a cleaner on the railway, which was, as we now know, a dirty job, and as far away from being a clerk as you could imagine. It's not dissimilar to me. My first job was in the tax office. I desperately wanted to be an actor, and I went into the civil service, and my mother thought that was great, and only to abandon it as soon as I could. At 21, funnily enough. Oh my God. At 21, the same thing. I applied for drama school and off I went. So maybe it's that same thing, because when you're 21, you're your own person. You don't need your parents' consent. Maybe we were a bit alike then, Alfred and I. How strange.
Sue's decision to go to drama school caused a major falling out with her parents.
When I announced that I was going to London, my mother and father were very upset, really. And I remember my mother leaving and saying my world's ended, because she lived a life around me, and it was very hard when I went. In my heart and soul, there was no other choice. That's the route I was going to take. And there are lots of things I feel strong about, but I just knew I was going to do that. That's the way it was going to be, and rather selfishly, nothing was going to stop me.
Sue's parents, Fred and Margaret, married in 1939. Since Fred died, Margaret has lived around the corner from Sue in Warrington.
It's me. Hi, Mum. You all right?
Yes, you.
Yeah.
Margaret was the third of Alf's 6 daughters. Sue's hoping that the new information she's uncovered will jog her mother's memory about the rift between grandfather Alf and his parents.
We got this from the census in 1901 when he was 15. He was in Workington as a shipbroker's clerk.
Was he? I didn't know that.
No, I know. I think it sounds like he's had this education, they've got him a job as a clerk, and he's...
He's not wanted it. Like you.
Like me.
Yours wasn't, was it?
No. When I went in the tax office, you mean?
That was worse. Well, she didn't like that at all, did she?
It certainly didn't. All right, you want to see this next one? Alf Cowan, age 21, a cleaner on the railways. You know, they clean the engine.
Yeah, he wasn't a stuck-up fella. It's lovely, but it's upsetting, isn't it?
When Margaret was born in 1915, her grandfather, James, was already dead. But she does remember her grandmother, Elizabeth.
What was she like, Mum?
Very tall and slim.
Was she pretty?
Oh, very elegant.
Bit grand.
Grand. She thought she was anyway.
Did she? What you think now, now that we've talked about and think about what the difficulties were between Grandpa and his parents?
I think it's because he married my mum, I do.
Alf's wife, also called Margaret, came from a working class background. Her father worked as a track layer on the railways. And whereas a cleaner was the beginning of the climb to labour aristocracy, track laying was endless hard labour. Sue suspects class divisions could explain why Alf's parents were opposed to his marriage to Margaret.
I'm getting the impression that these great-grandparents of mine were slightly pretentious, and probably very, very disappointed in not only his choice of bride, but also his choice of profession. Anyway, here I have something very interesting, which I'm going to look at. It's the marriage certificate of Alfred Cowan and Margaret Jane Lacey. Now, see, my mother was called after her mother, Margaret Jane. Alfred Cowan, aged 23, bachelor, and then he was a fireman. So in 2 years, he'd gone from being a cleaner to a fireman on the railway. And father's name, James Cowan. I'm sorry to laugh. I think I hit the mark when I said pretentious. Here it says, rank or profession of father, gentleman. Gentleman. That's very, very exposing, isn't it?
Sue's decided to travel to the Cumbrian town of Workington, where Alf was born. She wants to learn more about her great-grandparents, James and Elizabeth, and find out why they were so against Alf's choice of work and wife.
Hi. There's a room for us all.
Sue's family lived in Workington in the 1880s, when it was a thriving industrial town. The port was a hub of activity, the railway crucial to the export of coal and steel. But in the 1970s, Workington suffered an economic downturn, with the demise of both industries.
I've arrived in Workington, and in here should be my grandfather's birth certificate. So here, 29th of May, 1885, at the Station Hotel, Workington. So, Grandpa was born at the Station Hotel, not the Globe Hotel, Workington. Station Hotel can't be far from the station.
The only hotel Sue can find near the station is the Cumberland. But local fisherman Bill Hodson, who has lived in Workington all his life, might be able to help.
So this is the way to the old Station Hotel, then?
Yeah. Just round the corner here.
Is there anything of it left?
Just the back wall.
Just the back wall. Oh,
That's the
it.
end of the station hotel.
That's all that's left.
Yeah. And from this side, as you can see there,
Yeah.
there's a platform there.
Yes.
There's sheds both sides. There's big engine sheds. There's one of the biggest sheds in north of England at the time.
And how big was the hotel?
That was reasonable size, I'd say. Maybe what? 10 or dozen bedrooms and, staff quarters.
Busy.
It was more a drinking hotel than a accommodation.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Like a pub more?
Yeah, more of a big pub.
Oh, that's interesting. So it wasn't as grand as I've been thinking.
No, it wasn't. No.
It wasn't grand.
No, it wasn't a grand place to buy.
It wasn't. Do you remember it standing? Can you?
Oh, I've
yeah.
drunk in there many times.
Oh, have you?
Yeah. It's a sort of a railway, just a working man's boozer.
I'm ashamed. Not sure the family are going to like this.
Well, you'll have to move up to the Temperance Hotel then, won't
Yes.
you?
My ancestral home. It's humble, but it's home. It's very humble. I mean, it's amazing that it's so close to the railway and all of the yards, which is even more interesting, which Bill said, the yards. They were right by, if you think, platform was there. And the shunting yards. So that close, a little boy playing out here, well, he must have got to know all the drivers and the cleaners and the firemen. They must have been his mates, I suppose, growing up.
Sue wants to find out more about the station hotel. Was it a working-class boozer even when her great-grandparents ran it? Local historian Janet Thompson thinks that Workington Library has a photograph of the hotel in its archive.
Yes, that's an old view of the station, as it was, and it was to this, just to here. I'm not sure whether it's in this issue.
Oh, the one I've got. Okay. There we are, Station Hotel. It looks very bleak.
Before its demolition, the Station Hotel was a run-down social club. But when Sue's great-grandparents ran the hotel, business was booming.
When the railways really flourished, so did the hotel. At one time it had 9 bedrooms, I say, but accommodation facilities were reduced and finally abandoned in 1972.
But the Station Hotel was small in comparison to James's next hotel. By the time of the 1891 census, he was running the Globe, just along the coast in Whitehaven.
Duke Street.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it.
James Cowan, there.
I'll move it on a little bit. 107 Duke Street. It's sort of on a corner of Duke Street and Strand Street, but it really is a posh place.
Oh.
Yes. Oh yes. I think you'd be proud of it.
Excuse me.
So if you just
How the mighty have fallen.
so there is.
These are some of the servants here. Margaret Dryden, Lottie Nelson, Jane A. Little, servant. They're all single, these girls. Margaret Wilson, Susan Howard.
From that amount of staff, because I should think those were the ones that were only the ones that were living in. There'd be other staff coming in from outside, so it does look as if it's a big establishment, doesn't it? Yeah.
Today, the Globe has been converted into flats and a shop. Sue's great-grandfather James was in his 60s by the time he was running hotels. To go further back into his past, Sue needs to talk to her cousin Pauline, who's always been interested in the family's history. A few years ago, she drew up a family tree with her mother, another of Alf's 6 daughters. It has new information about James and his wife Elizabeth.
She worked, I think, as a manageress in the tea rooms at the station, I presume Carlisle, and that's where our great-grandfather would have met her, I presume.
Because he was the
station
master at Workington.
No, at Carlisle.
At Carlisle. Oh, that's quite grand.
Yeah. But I presume that's where he met her.
Well, I wonder why she didn't want Grandpa to go on the railways. Maybe she saw enough and thought
perhaps
she was...
she's married into, she thought, some money and, you know, go hoity-toity.
Sue's never seen a photograph of her great-grandfather, James, but a clear picture of him is now emerging.
Given that he had this important job of being station master at a very prestigious station like Carlisle, and that he then went on to run the Globe Hotel, which was pretty impressive. I'm just getting the picture of a very well-established and probably quite well-to-do Victorian gentleman.
The National Archives in London holds records of Carlisle Station committee meetings during the time James Cowan worked there.
Oh! This has got James Cowan written here. Porter. Application for advance of wages to 18 shillings a week. Resolved that the application be declined, oh bless him, until his term of 5 years' service has expired. Porter. I wouldn't have expected porter really, because that suggests to me very menial work. And it's funny to think that they're now writing about him at 18 and he can't have his increase, and soon he's going to be quite powerful.
James began his working life as a station porter in 1850. 11 years later, he was promoted to second assistant platform superintendent, and again in 1871 to foreman.
Oh. Oh. This is interesting. John Robley appointed foreman in place of James Cowan resigned. He's left. He never was station master. Ah, that's a myth. Is it a myth? 76. 25 years after he started. I wonder why he resigned.
Sue's travelling back up north to try and find out if James's reason for leaving the railways had something to do with his hostility to his son Alf then joining the railways 30 years later. When James Cowan worked at Carlisle, it was the largest station outside London. 300 trains passed through daily. Although a porter was expected to work long hours for low pay, it was the first rung on the ladder to station management. For many, it was a job for life. Dennis Perriam is a local historian with a particular interest in Carlisle Station.
Dennis, was it usual to take years to get promotion? Because my great-grandfather seemed to take 10 years before he moved from porter to foreman.
Yeah, William Jameson, who began at the station in 1847, took 41 years to become a station superintendent.
41.
So it was possible to rise through the ranks and become superintendent. And he remained in the job for 50 years. He worked here for 50 years, both porter and higher up as well.
So there wasn't a retirement date?
No, if you became station superintendent, you were in that job for life.
Sue's looking back through the records of Carlisle Station to see if she can now work out why James resigned.
In October 75, there was a replacement for Mr. Thomas Jones, who'd just died, and he was the superintendent at that point. And a new appointment was made here that Mr. Preston would become the station master. And interestingly enough, here, in 1876, James Cowan resigned. So suddenly, October, a year later, after this, I think he's realised that that's it. He's never going to make the top grade.
So in 25 years, James achieved just moderate promotion on the railways. But that doesn't explain why he was so opposed to Alf following in his footsteps. Sue's hoping the 1851 census can provide further information about James's personal life.
James Cowan living in Old Bush Lane in Carlisle at the age of 25, and he was born in Scotland. Well, fancy that. I've got Scottish blood in me. I always knew I had. Always knew. Old Bush Lane, 84 Old Bush Lane. Well, I haven't a clue where that is, but it'd be nice to find out, wouldn't it? It'd be lovely to see if it's... Oh, it wouldn't be still standing, would it?
Old Bush Lane has been demolished, but librarian Stephen White has a map of Carlisle from 1900.
Right, that's the large-scale map, and right at the top is Old Bush Lane.
Right, so what sort of housing would it be?
Well, I think it was fairly dire, you know.
Fairly dire.
People living on top of each other. In fact, I'll show you this.
I asked him what kind of property it would be, and he's shot off, inspired. Show me something.
And those are some actually, they were taken before the lanes are demolished.
Oh,
these
know
are some
Bush
small.
Lane.
Yeah, these are actually, I'll give you some idea, and that's an artist's.
Well, they would have lived.
And there's a letter in the paper, actually, 1865 there, which is referring to the conditions in Crown and Anchor Lane, which is just 2 lanes down, so I suppose the conditions there would have been very similar.
I solicit the aid of your column in drawing attention to the sanitary condition of a part of the Crown and Anchor Lane. For some time past, the stench arising from the piggeries, the slaughterhouses, etc., has been almost overpowering. Yet more than one family eat and sleep surrounded by such an atmosphere. Oh, they lived in terrible conditions.
The lanes of Carlisle were where the working classes lived, and by the 1850s, overcrowding was a big problem. The railways had brought the city out of isolation. The population had doubled as people flocked from rural communities looking for work. Nearly 10,000 people lived in these narrow streets. Malnutrition, disease, and death were rife.
It's really strange because you know these conditions existed, you've studied history and you think you know, but it really is extraordinary when it's your family. It's just really brings history not just to life, but it personalises it, that the people lived in this squalor, but I've now tracked it back to know that my family lived in these conditions. It sort of makes it very real. It's almost like you feel as your history's revealed, that you sort of think, oh, that makes sense. That's where I've come from then. That's why I react to things the way I do, because that's my history. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of really, it's me, this route. It's all about what's handed down, what comes through, not just genetically, but, I don't know, maybe sound crass, but I feel, that because I'm a socialist and because I've always cared about that injustice of the working classes and always had a love of Scotland, that maybe that's what my past is revealing, where all that comes from.
Looking back over the family tree given to her by her cousin Pauline, Sue's noticed a reference to her first wife, with whom great-grandfather James had at least one child, a daughter called Janet.
I knew nothing about her first wife, and no one in the family has ever talked about there being two. I would think it very unlikely that anybody would have been divorced in that period. So what I really need to do is go to the registry office and find out if there are any records of perhaps the baptism of the daughter might be a way of tracking it, and see if I can find anything about this missing first wife. First page. James and Jane Cowan. In 1853, there's a James and Jane Cowan baptised a daughter called Elizabeth. And then in 1854, there's a Janet born to them, and then 1858, a boy called James. And that's the first boy called James, and then there's, in 61, another boy called James Matthew. So if I'm going to find any information to clear up all that, what happened to those kids, what happened to Jane, the first wife, I think I'll have to go and see if I can find a death certificate.
It's a copy of the entry in the register.
August 1862. She was 35. It's cause of death.
That's phthisis.
Phthisis. Don't know what
Pass
it means.
on that one.
No, I've never heard of
No.
that. 5 months certified.
So basically that just means she's obviously had phthisis for the last 5 months before
Right.
she's died.
Sue needs the help of a doctor to explain the unpronounceable disease that Jane died from.
So this was phthisis.
How to say it again? Sorry?
Phthisis.
Isis.
Phthisis.
Isis.
Yes.
Ah, nobody said it right so far then.
Which is a Greek word for consumption.
Ah.
Which around this time was what they would have called tuberculosis.
I see.
Yeah. There was a big problem there due to overcrowding with the Industrial Revolution and people coming to live together, particularly in conditions of poor ventilation and lighting and perhaps with a poor diet. Probably she would have been ill for months or years in very poor health, underweight, thin, poorly, with a cough which would have been getting worse, producing phlegm, maybe even coughing up blood.
TB, or the White Plague as it was known, was the biggest killer in Victorian Britain. It was responsible for 1/4 of all deaths. In the squalid conditions of the lanes, Jane stood little chance of survival.
Now I know the sort of death that Jane had and how awful it must have been. To die of consumption is a rather graphic explanation by the doctor. I can only think how awful it must have been for my great-grandfather James, because it would seem through the death certificate that he nursed her. He was in attendance when she died. And then he loses her at the age of 35. Left with young children. I mean, I don't know what happened to the children, but if they're all living in this room or this small house, those children would have... There's every chance that those children would have got TB. I'm amazed he didn't.
3 of the 4 children from James's first marriage did die. James at 5 months, James Matthew at 18 months, and Elizabeth at 6 years. James was present at the death of all his children. In Victorian Britain, a quarter of all children didn't make it to their first birthday. The years spent living in the lanes of Carlisle had cost James dearly. Jane died in 1861, the year James was promoted to platform superintendent on a respectable wage of £70 a year, giving him disposable income for the first time. 5 years later, James married Sue's great-grandmother, Elizabeth, who was then a domestic servant at the County Hotel, just a stone's throw away from Carlisle Station.
I've managed to get hold of a copy of the 1871 census in Carlisle. That is 10 years on from Jane's death. So I'm trying to see now if I can trace what in the intervening 10 years has become of James. James Cowan, head of the family, 45, railway employer still. With his wife, Elizabeth, is 29, and Janet, the daughter from his first marriage, and she's 16. And then a great gap to the first of Elizabeth's children, Mary Jane, daughter aged 3, and William, the son, who's 1. But I just want to point out one other little thing that I've noticed here. There's one more person living in the house, and she's called Jessie McGeorge. I can speak like that now because I'm half Scottish. And she's 15. She's a general servant. So, times have changed. In 10 years, when he's gone through living in the abject poverty in the lanes, to losing his wife and possibly 3 children from consumption, to then having been promoted through the railway, meeting Elizabeth here in this very hotel where I'm sitting, and then he's now having a new family. So got Janet with him, got a new family and a servant. So having gone through all that terrible time, he's now on the up. And where I thought before he was ambitious and pompous and sort of, I now think, I'm glad it's happening for you because you deserve it. You've had such a terrible, terrible life up to now. Just go for it, babes.
Soon after James married Elizabeth, the family left Old Bush Lane for good and moved into rented accommodation nearby.
This is it, the house that James moved to. This would have been 29 according to the records, Lowther Street, and it's pretty impressive. And over there are the back of the lanes, so a stone's throw to this rather grand abode. And what is interesting, I've got the street directory of the time, and the sort of people that were living here in this street, his neighbours, are slate merchants, timber merchants, dressmakers, surveyors of taxes, physicians, dentists, wine merchants, another physician, an auctioneer. So you can see that he has certainly risen among the ranks.
29 Lowther Street is now a Victorian-themed cafe.
Lots of space and light. And there's a basement, so I suppose Jessie lived down in the basement. You can see it, can't you? The old fireplace still here. And still a great view of the lanes. I wonder if that was deliberate. It's good to see where you come from. I feel much closer to him now I've followed this path. I feel as if I've got to know him somewhere along the line. It's self-made man time, isn't it? But it's also because he's had such tragedy in his life, I can almost forgive him anything. Still interesting that, given all that, Alfred chose to go the other way. When he decided to throw it all up and start as the lowest of the low on the railways, James must have gone, oh my God, he's going to end up in the lanes. He's going to have a wife with consumption. They're not going to have any money. They're going to be poor. They're going to have done all this and come all this way, and now he's going to go back to where I started. But he didn't. It's a good story. One of the most interesting things that I've learned is the fact that when my grandfather was 21, he turned his back on a certain way of life and went for what he wanted in exactly the same way that I did. I have a deeper understanding of how my parents felt, how hard it must have been for them and how worrying. In the same way it must have been for James and Elizabeth to let my grandfather go.